Welcome to this ITTF Intertribal Task Force sponsored discussion on tribally owned Native American business opportunities. My name is Kevin Chesnick. I am an Oneida Nation tribal member and the former chief engineer for the Wisconsin Department of Transportation. These webinars intend to explore critical knowledge that tribal governments need to understand in order to create tribally owned and certified business in three distinct areas. These three areas include Department of Administration MBE, Wisconsin DOT DBE, and Federal Highway SBA Section 8A program. This is the second webinar of three-session set of webinars that provides critical information, contact, policy guidance, and several tribally owned firm stories on working for the Wisconsin Department of Administration, the Wisconsin Department of Transportation, and the U.S. federal government. The goal of these presentations is to provide tribal governments with the process, steps required to create tribally owned businesses that are certified to work as DOA MBE, WSDOT DBE, and Federal Highway SBA Section 8A certified firms in Wisconsin. This also includes information on the available support resources tribally owned firms are able to access to find work, compete for projects successfully, and become viable and sustainable tribally owned businesses. Webinar number 1 discussed opportunities for the tribes to create firms that are recognized as tribally owned and certified as Wisconsin Department of Administration Minority Business Enterprise, or MBE. Webinar 2 provides information for tribes looking to create firms that are recognized as tribally owned and certified as WSDOT Disadvantaged Business Enterprise, or DBE. And Webinar 3 will provide information for tribes that are looking to create firms that are recognized as tribally owned and certified as Section 8A program of the Federal U.S. Small Business Administration. The goal today is to learn more about how to create tribally owned businesses that establish long-term business relationships with WSDOT and are DBE certified in Wisconsin. As an overview for today's agenda, we're going to talk about tribally owned WSDOT Disadvantaged Business Enterprise programs. I'll be your moderator. We'll have a brief overview of WSDOT DBE Tribal Enterprise from Ina Williamson of the Wisconsin Procurement Institute. The nuts and bolts of the process of becoming certified as a DBE Tribal Enterprise for WSDOT will be done by Michelle Carter from Wisconsin DOT. And then we'll hear about a tribally owned perspective on WSDOT DBE status from Matt Van Beek, OES or Oneida Enterprise Services. I'll provide a closing discussion on our last slide. Today's presenter, Ina Williamson from the Wisconsin Procurement Institute, will provide a brief DBE overview. Then our second speaker, Michelle Carter from Wisconsin DOT, will provide information on how a tribally owned business can become WSDOT certified as a disadvantaged business enterprise. Finally, our third speaker, Matt Van Beek, OES, will provide perspective on working with WSDOT as a certified disadvantaged business enterprise. And now I'd like to turn it over to Ms. Ina Williamson from the Wisconsin Procurement Institute.
Thank you. I just want to make a few comments on the broader value of the DBE program. The DBE certification is available to small businesses that are owned and controlled by individuals that qualify based on social and economic disadvantage. In the case of the DBE certification, women and minorities are considered disadvantaged. So why should you consider a DBE certification? Well, it's because it gives you a preference in contracting. As with anything that you do with government work, the certification process is not easy. It will require time and resources to complete. So before you decide to make the investment, make sure that it is a good fit for your business. In Wisconsin, WSDOT has established DBE participation goals for highway, transit, and airport work. As you can see, there are significant dollars here to be had. The DBE program does not just apply to Wisconsin Department of Transportation. In Wisconsin, there are 3 additional program certifying agencies. They include the City of Madison, Dane County, and Milwaukee County. What you see on your screen, all these links are hot linked, and they'll take you right to the location where you can find out more specific information from that particular agency. On this slide, I have also listed the airports, cities, and counties in Wisconsin that work with the DBE program. Make sure you consider all opportunities if you qualify for the DBE program. The DBE program is also used by other states. Take a look at the hot link that I've provided on the slide. Also find out if there are mentor-protege opportunities and vendor lists available to expand the potential of this program for your business. As you have made a serious investment in getting your DBE, you should leverage it as much as possible. You need to get the word out to primes and agencies that work with the DBE program that you are certified and ready to go to work. You also need to network. This is absolutely critical. You need to be found and need to get known. Two great opportunities in Wisconsin are the annual WisDOT Golden Shovel Award and the Marketplace Conferences. Also be aware of other opportunities where you can present your qualifications and capabilities. Again, I've provided you with hot links here to take a look at how to expand the use of your DBE. Thank you, and I will now turn the program over to Michelle.
Thank you, Ina. My name is Michelle Carter, and I am with WisDOT's DBE program. I am the Director of the Office of Business Opportunity and Equity Compliance. The most important thing to understand about the DBE program is that it is a federal program, and it is also law. It's codified in Title VI and in the Transportation Bill. And the biggest takeaway from that is that there's a requirement that as an agency, we ensure non-discrimination in how we do business. And so I was tasked in this presentation to tell you about what it takes for a tribally owned business to be eligible for DBE certification. Now the bottom line is that the DBE program is really designed to remedy ongoing discrimination and the continuing effects of past discrimination. So a firm that's owned by an Indian tribe instead of by individuals who are Native American is eligible for certification. USDOT recognizes that Indian tribes may own a variety of businesses that might be considered affiliates, but because of that common ownership, they have to make a consideration for how affiliation applies. And I'm going to talk about this as we go through the presentation. So the special rules that apply is that the tribe itself does not have to be disadvantaged, even though it's called a disadvantaged business enterprise. It's only the disadvantaged individuals who control that firm that have to meet the DBE certification standards. So we're looking at the officers of the applicant firm, the disadvantaged officers of the firm. We're looking at board members or the CEO or who's running the company. So it's very specific what we're looking at, not the tribe in its entirety. The DBE applicant firm, including its affiliates, have to meet SBA size standards. And then lastly, what we call affiliation for tribes is different than what we call it for individual businesses. So one of the first things in qualifying as DBE is that there be social disadvantage. And there's some folks that are automatically presumed to be socially disadvantaged based on the way that our government has operated. And those folks are listed there. So a firm that's owned by an Indian tribe or Native Hawaiian organization can be eligible if the disadvantaged individuals who control the firm meet the DBE certification standards. So what I have here are a couple considerations. So the disadvantaged individuals who control the business don't have to be members of the tribe. So let's say that this is a business that is owned by a tribe, but it has an active, there is a manager that runs the day-to-day, and that there is a board that consists of tribal members and other a managing individual who is not a tribal member, and let's say it's a white male who is not disadvantaged. So what we look at is that white male is running the business, therefore we need to know what's the balance of the people or the board there. So do they meet the burden of social disadvantage? So let's say that that owner is not a white male, it's a Hispanic male. Well, he's going to fall into that category. So the disadvantaged individual does control the business. If a non-tribal member manages the applicant firm, that manager, again, can be from one of the other groups. So I want to summarize that and say, we look at who is managing the day-to-day and who actually controls the business itself. Economic disadvantage. We look at, again, the individuals who will control the applicant firm has to show us capital contributions to the business. So we still have to see that. That's a measure of the DBE program. We look for personal net worth statements. That's a requirement, and an individual cannot exceed $1.32 million in earnings in their net worth. And that net worth, it excludes the value of the home that they live in and the business that they're applying for. Each individual who will control the firm, again, CEOs, board members, officers, all of them will submit a personal net worth statement. So I want to say that again. Only the ones who will control the firm. So that's not all of the tribal members. That is the ones who will be controlling the firm. So again, is it an LLC? Is the firm itself the applicant firm? Is it run by a board? And again, so only the ones who will control the firm are the ones who have to submit the personal net worth statement. So again, you see the considerations here at the bottom of the page. Which members of the tribe are actually working in the businesses? Are they an officer of the firm? Do those disadvantaged individuals, so even if it's 10 members or 10 partners in there, if 8 out of the 10 constitute more than 51% ownership, then they're fine. Do the disadvantaged individuals who control the applicant firm contribute technical competence? So we can't have an engineer running a excavating firm. An engineer could do the engineering firm, a trucking firm. Again, does the person have a CDL, the people that will be controlling the firm? So remember that control, the economic disadvantage, is only assigned and evaluated for the individual who will control the applicant firm. Again, if you see there on the left-hand column, we're ticking off all of the certification standards that are applicable here. Small business size. We evaluate in the DBE program, we evaluate business size based on the federal business tax returns, and they call it the firm's annual gross receipts. And we also will use the SBA table of size standards, and it's categorized by the type of work the business does. And so, for example, a specialty trade contractor like someone who does concrete or someone who does landscaping, their maximum is going to be at $15 million in annual earnings, again, looked at based on their federal income tax return. For USDOT, the maximum size for DB certification is $23.98 million. Again, remembering that's the business size based on income tax. We do 3-year average of earnings to get to what that amount is. Then looking at that, we then say if there's other affiliates, and the affiliates are going to be determined based on whether the tribe is saying that all of these businesses all of the earnings of those businesses can be put together. We need to see that the tribe bills or states that there is a legal firewall that says they cannot access the earnings of those other businesses in this particular business in order for it to work and still be the small business side. Because we recognize that tribes may own multiple businesses, but we do need to see the distinction of this particular business to know their size. So again, you see the questions there. Does the tribe own any other businesses? Are the disadvantaged individuals who control the applicant business accessing those other resources? And again, you see that, as I said, the tribe must document a firewall. So it's just a legal document, almost like a notarized kind of document that says what they should be doing. So to continue, the way that we evaluate the small business for disadvantaged status is that we look at the primary work type. So what type of business are you requesting to run? We look at the work areas that the disadvantaged owners can demonstrate that they control. So again, if you're going to be an engineering firm, we are looking at your credentials as an engineer. So do you have an engineering degree? Do you have a PE perhaps? If you say you want to have an excavating firm, we want to know that you have experience doing some excavation and that you have some equipment. Control is looked at as operational control. So no limits. You have hiring and firing ability. You have the ability to grow the business, move the business. You again have all ultimate authority. Despite if you delegate any of that out, again, you have ultimate authority as a business. So again, we are looking at tribal members. When you seek certification, only refer to the tribal members who have expertise in filling out your application, because what we want to know is that that individual or those individuals have the capability or the expertise to run the business. And so lastly, I think this last slide illustrates that it's really a balancing act. And again, tribal members are able, or tribes themselves as well as Native American individuals are able to get DBE certified. But the special case for tribes just requires that we look at the disadvantaged individuals who will control the firm. We will look at their economic disadvantage in reviewing their personal net worth. We will look at that they exceed more than 51% of the ownership of the business. And we need to confirm that indeed they are a small business based on the type of business that they're interested in. So you see the balance between ownership and control, and all these things are ones that we've spoken of before. Affiliate, self-sufficiency, independent, looking for technical competence, and the different types of control. Thank you.
Michelle, thank you for that information. It was very useful. Hello, this is Matt Van Beek. I'm a member of the Oneida Nation and the managing principal of Oneida Engineering Solutions. I was the one responsible for obtaining the DBE certification for our engineering firm. The purpose of this section is to provide an overview of the DBE application process from the tribe's perspective. The first thing that I would recommend is to perform upfront DBE research. Read and become familiar with the regulations pertaining to DBE. There are some specific regulations that apply to tribally owned firms, and it's very important to understand. Hiring an attorney with experience in DBE and or SBA regulations may be beneficial to assist you with pre-screening the DBE application and backup documentation to ensure compliance before submitting, and assisting with any questions or clarifications that may arise through the application process. Basically, what this will help you do is decrease the amount of time from start to finish required in the DBE certification process. Here are some helpful regulations and guidance that should be referenced during your DBE research, as it will help you avoid pitfalls along the way. Title 49 of the federal regulations explains the overall administration of the DBE program. Title 13 explains the requirements to be considered a small business and how businesses are determined to be affiliated. Affiliation is an important concept to understand because most often tribes own many enterprises, and the relationship among the enterprises could disqualify the firm's eligibility as a DBE if not handled properly. One particular section to note is 121.103 Part 2, which has specific language pertaining to affiliation exemption and the performance of common administrative services for firms owned and controlled by Indian tribes. An example of this affiliation exemption would be a tribally owned firm that is owned by a holding company. The holding company performs common administrative services such as payroll, human resources, and bookkeeping. The two firms will not be considered affiliated as long as adequate payment for these services are provided. The official questions and answers in the U.S. DOT guidance should also be referenced. After you have completed your initial research, the next step in the process is to establish a standalone business entity. This is necessary because it isolates the line of business from the rest of the tribe's assets. The entity needs to be completely separate and independent from other tribally owned businesses. This is very important. This keeps things clean from a financial and reporting standpoint because there are income thresholds based on the nature of the business that will have to be reported on an annual basis to ensure DBE criteria isn't exceeded. And that's based on the NAICS code for the work that's being performed. Other things that will need to be established are bank accounts, lines of credit, insurance, business licenses and permits, and pre-qualifications if needed. For example, if you are to perform engineering services for the Wisconsin Department of Transportation, you may need to be pre-qualified based on the type of work that you are performing. Along with creating a standalone business entity, you'll need to designate controlling members of the firm. Controlling members must meet the disadvantage criteria per the DBE regulation. In our instance, the controlling members were all tribal members, and those tribal members had to meet the personal net worth threshold to be considered disadvantaged. And all those members did have to provide those personal net worth statements along with the DBE application. The controlling members should also demonstrate competence in the field of work that they are pursuing. In our instance, the OES controlling members were the managing principal, the general manager, and the board of directors. As mentioned, all of them were tribal members. You will be required to submit the resumes of the controlling members along with the DBE application for review. And basically the DBE office will review and determine if the background for the controlling members is sufficient for operating the business. Just a couple of things to note about the DBE application. The application is a general application, US DOT Uniform DBE AC DBE certification application. This application is designed for a traditional business owned by individuals such as a sole proprietor or a partnership. It really isn't designed or suited well for firms owned by a tribe. Not all the categories on the application will be 100% fit. What I recommend is to complete it to the best of your ability, and the controlling members should demonstrate competence in the field of work that they are pursuing. Along with that, provide supplementary information to accompany the application. Some examples of this would be a document that describes ownership at the tribal level, the roles and responsibilities of the controlling members, and additional information and explanations and clarifications to questions on the application as needed. That's for where the categories don't completely fit. And provide all applicable requested backup documentation. I also recommend to keep things as organized as possible, which makes it easy for the reviewer. Organizing things in a tab binder with all backup documentation is recommended. This slide just shows all the various sections that were submitted along with the original Wisconsin DBE application. As you can see, there is about 15 different sections there that they review throughout the process. Okay, the application process in general. So the first step is completing and submitting the application to the DBE office. The DBE office is going to perform an initial review, just basically making sure that all the application is complete and then all backup documentation has been provided. The next step in the process is they're going to schedule an on-site interview at the company office. Basically, the purpose of that interview is they're going to validate that it is truly a real business. that is controlled by the disadvantaged members. Plan on having them taking some photos of the office, and also asking some questions in general based on the operations of the business. After that, I would expect a further review of the DBE materials along with the results of the office inspection, and I would expect 1 to 2 rounds of requests for information and or clarifications. The Wisconsin DOT office was very thorough in their review, and that's just one thing that, again, I would mention that I would expect that there will be some miscellaneous questions that will arise from the review. And then after that, they will make a final determination of the DBE status. The OES application took approximately 4.5 months from start to finish, from initial review to final approval. Okay, so the DBE certification going forward. So once you're certified in your home state, you can use that certification to become eligible for DBE status in other states. With that process, basically what you will do is you'll submit the same information packet and all correspondence, including your RFI responses, to the state of interest, and they will review your application. This doesn't mean that you will be grandfathered in immediately. It means that they'll perform their own review of the materials and determine whether or not you meet the DBE criteria. They may also ask for additional information. OES is certified in 5 states: Wisconsin, Minnesota, Illinois, Texas, and Florida. One thing that you'll need to do is complete a no-change affidavit and provide backup documentation on an annual basis on all states where certified. It's just one thing to keep in mind, that once you obtain DBE status, there is ongoing administrative items that need to be kept track of. The no-change affidavit states that the business still meets DBE criteria such as income thresholds, etc., and that the controlling members are still disadvantaged. The affidavit needs to be signed by all controlling members of the firm. I want to thank you for your time, and I'll turn it over to Kevin Chesnick.
Thank you, Matt. That was a very interesting discussion on how OES handled their DBE application. I want to take this time right now to thank all of our speakers today. I want to thank Ina Williamson for her introduction, Michelle Carter from the Wisconsin Department of Transportation, and of course, Mr. Matt Van Beek from OES. That concludes our presentation today. If you have any questions for these individuals, as you can see, their contact information is on the screen. I hope you all have a good day. Thank you.